Good. There we go. Much better. Good morning, Carly. Do-do-do. Says so. Welcome back, everyone. Appreciate you guys being here. Let me share my screen here on this because today I kind of wanted to talk about. I'm actually invited to go to do-do-do. I'm invited to actually go to the Century 21 conference, which I'm going to, and they're invited me to actually speak there at the global conference in LA next month. And so I kind of, they asked me to talk about negotiation. And so I will bring up a little bit of that today. So I'm kind of practicing on you guys on before the big stage on that. But I like this class though, in regards to handling objections, because in part, you can have the most amazing presentations. Everything looks really great, but if you don't have the right things to say or the how to handle the objections or how to handle yourself and what to say in regards to that, then it's going to obviously be kind of I would classify as a crash and burn. But what I liked here is what I learned in Hawaii. This is what I want to share with what I learned in Hawaii is that you kind of need to know your audience. Okay, this is spam. Now, if you went to, I used to eat spam all the time as a kid. My dad really liked it, and not really sure why. I had my sister-in-law cook us up some spam about 2 years ago, and I went, why did I even like it? Maybe some people like spam, but I thought it was pretty awesome though because spam. If you go down to our Costco here in California, you're not going to find, and all this up here on top, but you can't see it, are all spam too. So they have like probably a zillion years of spam in here for maybe. Californian people, but there in Hawaii, they even dropped other ones in. So I thought that was really cool. What I learned is that sometimes when you're actually speaking or you're negotiating or you're talking to somebody, you really just kind of need to know them. And so that's important. Here's a couple pictures that we had there in Hawaii, which was kind of fun. So negotiation, it's important. It's important because these things are going to come up, and if you don't know what to say and when to say it, then you're going to have a problem. This is a book that I would recommend, which is Phil Jones. It's a very easy read, my favorite type of reads there, which is exactly what to say and kind of when to say it. You can probably find him a lot on YouTube and different videos, but phenomenal. I think he's got like 2 or 3 books out now, and he is a master of the key words of what to say it and not give the client a yes and no answer opportunity, but give them kind of the deeper thinking and stuff on that. So go ahead. Question?
They did a real estate version of, is that the real estate version of that book? So they did I'm reading the exactly what to say for real estate agents. So they did
Yes.
a specific one for that.
Yeah, there is a specific one. There's actually I know Chris Smith. They wrote a book with Chris Smith on Curator, which he actually former Curator founder, but now he's on to something different. But yeah, they actually wrote a book on what to say for real estate agents, which is phenomenal. So if
Yeah,
you guys
that's what
could
I'm reading
find
right
that
now.
one, is amazing. So it's super powerful and it just kind of gives that to you. So I was able to go meet with some seniors at Bear River doing some senior projects, in which Bear River is our high school, and those who don't know, and I was able to go. They were basically coming in to be interviewed, like if I was an employer, and be able to have that conversation. And I was just trying to tell them that you guys need to have, like, if somebody asks you right now as a real estate agent, why should I hire you? And I asked them, all these students, that straight up, and I had 2 of the students who just immediately just confident, which is actually one of the ones we're going to talk about, just said, this is why you should hire me. And some other ones, and we kind of critiqued that a little bit. And some other ones were put on the spot and they went, because because I work hard. And we kind of shared that because they stalled out on their question. They didn't have that answer straight up right out of their lips. And so just having that immediately is going to be so important on that. So I personally feel listening. That's why we've shared in the last couple of weeks of being and sitting down at the table with a buyer consultation, with a seller consultation, and just listen to them and say, what do you need? How can I solve what you need? Yesterday I went to another one that I sold them this property in 2004, and they built a gorgeous house on it, and a barn and a guest house, which is a stunning house. And so, but I just got there and sat and listened. Then when they asked, well, what should we do? Then I kind of shared that. You get so personal about things because yesterday I also met with the consultation here in the office that I sold him a house probably about the same year, about that time as frame as well. Then he actually was asking me questions about his job and what should he do with this. He wants to maybe move to Florida where his kids are. And so I gave him a plan. I said, you got to call your job right here and talk to him about this. Then you got to call the other agent in Florida and ask him how much the house would rent for it and say, we're interested in the house, but we may not be able to go quite yet because of the job. So I just kind of laid it all out, and so it was more than just a consultation of, what's my house worth? It was more of a life consultation about how do I get to this place where I need to be with my problems that I have and my concerns right now. So I just sat and listened to them. They just spiel it all out. I take a couple notes. I ask permission to take some notes so they're not wondering what I'm writing down over there. And I just have this conversation. I listen. And so then when they come back and say, what should I do? Then I'll say, okay, great. I go back to and says, okay, first off, let's talk about your job situation. Okay, first off, let's talk about, what the options are here with this home that they built who are getting 87 years old on 10 acres of property. And what should I do? I said, well, you got a guest house, move into that, rent your house out. That's option number two. So then you'll have monies to actually stay longer because they prefer to stay longer. Option three is that they want to move down to Sonoma where their kids are, which can't happen because it's too expensive. So I mean, there's these different things that we were trying to come up with a game plan for them. So listen is super critical to do. And then go with confidence. You guys need to have the confidence like no other. So if you walk into a consultation, you don't feel that you're confident that you're able to get the listing, or confident that that they're going to choose you as their buyer's agent, then you've lost half the battle. So confidence is important. Use technology. We've shared that the last several weeks. Video. I was out with clients this week, buyers that I already spent 2 weeks ago, was on a 45-minute consultation with on using Zoom, and they showed up and we were all like, oh, hey, Eric, it's good to see you again. It's like, and number one, I was thinking, oh, that's right, we did do a Zoom. I didn't say that to myself, but it was like I forgot that we did the Zoom, but they felt like that they knew me. And so it was kind of crazy, like that they kind of knew me because we already met and we already like had a conversation about that. And so you can kind of share that. The gentleman that walked in yesterday at this consultation, I kind of shared with him. I said, so how are you still doing with barbecuing and smoking meats? Is that still something that you're doing? And he went, Eric, how do you even remember that? And I said, I just remember that was one of your best hobbies, that you love to smoke and barbecue meats. And he goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe you remember that. It's been like 15 years ago. So those are type of things that just, if you know your people and you listen, things will kind of stick there for you. We talked about preparations. So we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit, just about where to be and what to say and when to say it. So read all the books that you need to do, and then learn. And we're going to kind of come up with some of those verbiage today. Ask for the business, so critical. I told the kids yesterday or day before, I said that if they go like this, and they finish your interview and they've got your application and they've got your resume, and they start going like this, and they just kind of go, okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming in, and we'll get back to you. Now, have we seen that as realtors? Yes. Have we seen that as we go in and get jobs? And I asked the students there, and they said, absolutely, that happened to me once, or two of them said, no, they gave me the job right then and there. But if they actually are sitting there packing up like, okay, thanks for coming in, appreciate your advice, there's probably a reason why, like they're either looking for someone else. So I told the students, I said, this is what you do. I said, well, that's great. What would it take for you to hire me today? That's what I would go. Now, maybe that'd be a little bit confident for a 17-year-old to kind of say, but for adults as realtors, wouldn't we want to say the same? If they say, yeah, we're meeting another agent tomorrow, appreciate you coming in, and say, you know what, I really appreciate that, but are you happy with the valuation we came up? Yes. Are you happy with the marketing that we discussed? Yes. Do you feel that we have a great rapport with that we could work together? Yes. So what would stop you from hiring me today before I leave to make this happen? Have that conversation, ask for the business, and they might just say, you know what, you're right. I think I shared this before. Maybe you guys didn't hear it, but I literally was in one in Auburn. And I said, do you want to sit there and go and spend another hour and a half? Because we just spent an hour and a half here going over your property and questions. Do you want to spend another hour and a half tomorrow with another agent when you're actually totally fine with everything that we've actually discussed? And he goes, no, I really don't. I said, okay, let's sign today. And so he signed today. If I would have walked out of that appointment, they would have signed with the other agent because we would have been both equal to his eyes, or he didn't want to call me back to have someone else, because whoever was in front of him who felt comfortable, he would sign. So we have to learn when's the right time. I know this week I was in another consultation with a seller that said, oh, you know what, I have a friend of mine that I want to also interview. So how do you discuss that, and how do you say to, maybe you shouldn't, do you really want to list with a friend? That could be really, really blunt, because at the same time, if we had our best friend that wanted to sell their house, wouldn't you feel comfortable if they called you, or would you feel bad if they didn't call you? Because of course, if they're your friend, you want them to be, to use you as well. So that's a little bit of a more gentle discussion. So I kind of said, I know that's great. I appreciate the opportunity to come out here. I know friendship is really important. And I know that this is the first time that we met, but I will tell you, by doing business and from experience of other sellers sharing with me, that they said doing business with their friends has been a little bit difficult, because if something comes awry, then they don't know what to really say or how to be able to act out of friendship, to be able to be either upset or concerned, or because there's too much connection there. So being fresh with somebody, a professional that you don't know, that actually has done this many, many times, I'd be happy to offer my business to you. So those are kind of a way I could kind of say it in a polite way, that your friend might be super, super superb, but at the same time, do you really want to work with a friend when things get a little bit hard? So, and we'll see, because I did lose a listing last month because they interviewed the friend, the friend was the person that actually sold the house to them. And of course, yesterday with that consultation here in the office, he said, who else would I turn to? You're my realtor for life. And when you hear those type of words, that's great. But sometimes sellers, forget about you. So that's why you have to stay on top of mind awareness on that. Okay. All right. I'm gonna go back for Jessica. This is my pictures here. There's this little picture down here, Jess, of this picture of our cute little family. It's so fun. It's kind of a little bit, it's hard to see on that one, but anyway, we had a fun time there. So I'll share more pictures of ducklings and things that we saw there for you, Jess. All right. Let's see. Where was I at? Okay. So objection. Had this yesterday. Did anybody ask you if they want to, how's the compensation? Can you cut your compensation because other agents will? Do you immediately just cave and say, sure, be happy to? Or do you kind of sit up a little bit more and say, nope, not doing it? How do you say that in a polite way? Anybody have any ideas? You just say nope.
I think you kind of position it as, there are some discount brokerages out there, and, given the fact that we have so many marketing strategies and provide so much value, that's not something that we're willing to do
Which
ish.
would which would work, yeah. So there's a fine line there, and I share with the class over the years that there's like two of them that come to my mind straight up that I said no to, and both of them, most of them was pricing too, and I didn't get them, and then later they sold them, and then guess who didn't get the commission? Well, it was me. So most of those were because I didn't take the house as a higher value than what I felt that the property was worth. So this is what I shared. We had an offer. I shared this before, that we were sitting there signing an offer, and a neighbor knocked on the door and said, "Oh, don't sign. I want to buy the house." That we actually closed yesterday, which was great. But at the same time, he actually asked me for some reduction of compensation because the neighbor. Well, we were about to sign an offer, and I had to remind him at 600 and like 39,000, I think, or something like that. And so, or 635 that we were about to sign an offer because the buyers wouldn't come up any higher. And then the neighbors gave us a full price offer of 650. So I kind of reminded him that, hey, you know what, you got more money. But at the same time, this is kind of how I say it. I say, I'm always negotiable because commissions are always negotiable, both on buyer and seller. But I will let you know right now that because I'm not an a la carte listing agent, I actually take pride in all of my marketing and what I do. So I'm not going to say, okay, well, you can take this out or this out. So I want to give all in is what, it's basically what my license plate says as well. And so I would like to, but I will be willing to negotiate with you. So usually sometimes when we get into contract or if the offer isn't quite what we want, or there's some negotiation repairs where the buyer says, I'm not going any higher. At that point, I always step in and assist and help because I'm going to make sure the deal gets done. So right now at the moment, it's going to be 3%, but certainly when we get to that point, I'm very willing to work and negotiate with you. Would that work for you? Yes. So all they really wanted to do is hear that you would be negotiable. Now we got to the end of the table. We didn't, there was nothing needed to be done. They signed their 3% compensation. We moved on. They were happy. But if there's something like the other day that I threw in 2,000 or 1,000 in another transaction to make things work, you do it. So that's kind of what happens. Like a lot of the compensation that's getting kickback of asking for a reduction of compensation is really on the buyer side right now. Never was before. You would just see your 2.5%, you'd see your 3% in the MLS, and you would just put the offer in and you would get it. Now they're coming back to us and saying, hey, we'll accept this offer, but can you do 2% instead of 2.5? I had to do that to a buyer the other day, which I don't like doing that to. Not a buyer, sorry, a buying agent that I had to say, look, you know what, he'll take this deal, but are you good to doing it at 2%? Because he doesn't want to pay at this price. He's not going to pay you that other $3,000. And both of them did that. They both actually did. So that objection, I wouldn't really call it a super objection, but I feel that sometimes if you get asked that question, then maybe you haven't shared enough to what you actually do to earn that compensation. So majority of the time, I really don't have them even asking me that, what would you reduce your compensation? They might ask me what it is, and a lot of times when we get down to the end of the conversation, they'll say, is there anything else I'm missing? I said, well, we really haven't talked about compensation, but I really kind of want to bring that up because of the new rule change, that what the compensation, how that all works out. I feel getting the 3% compensation is a lot easier right now because you're only putting a 3 in the box versus 6. So to me, it looks like they're already getting half the compensation. And I say, well, we're going to negotiate that later. So right now we're only negotiating my compensation, which is 3%, and it's not 6%. If you say those words, they go, oh, that's nice. They already felt like they already got, a cut in half. So that's something that I used the other day, and they were totally fine with that. So you guys are welcome to take pictures of this. I thought Tom Ferry was great. Says compensation aren't negotiable with agents that sell daily. They are only negotiable with the realtors who don't believe in the service they offer. So if you immediately say, just ask me, will you reduce my commission? And I say, sure, be happy to. Again, some people always say, you can come back with a question and say, can you imagine if a buyer came in and asked, hey, would you take $50,000 less? And we say, sure, we'd be happy to. No, we've got to negotiate that. We're not going to do that. We're going to meet somewhere. Now, I do, if it's like a $1 million house, or if I'm actually, selling another home that they're also buying another home in the local neighborhood, then yes, I'll say, at this price point, I am willing to do a 2.5% commission on this because of the price point where we're at. Because you don't need 3% of $1 million. It's a lot. It'd be nice to have, but it's a lot of money. So I do kind of share that with them a little bit, that I would at this, and I would be, happy to negotiate with that. But I also try first going in with the verbiage that I used before. Yeah, there's compensation. You're right. There's a lot of discount agents out there. So perfect. You nailed that one, Carly, right on. If your agent was so desperate that you're willing to broadcast the fact that you don't think that you have the value of a realtor, I'm confused. So, there's different things that you can say, but you should memorize these. Whatever that you feel that was worked for you, use it and work with it. I know that some people, I think Jessica knows Talea. She's an agent down. I would probably use some crispier $1 bills because these are the only pictures I could find. But she did this one time and she just laid 3 $1 bills out and said, okay, I appreciate you asking me that. And let me just share kind of how compensation works. Because a lot of times, if you're a first-time seller, they have no idea how compensation works, where the money goes. And say, then she puts the $3 bills out and says, okay, $1 right here goes to my brokerage, $1 goes to my marketing, and the other dollar goes to me for my living expenses. Which one do you want me to eliminate? Because I can't eliminate the broker. So which one is, so if you kind of say it that way, they kind of go, oh, yeah. So, I want you to not make any money. So they need to realize and understand that, hey, what, a certain percentage of the money goes to the brokerage as well. Well, can the broker then come and redo something? And you'll usually get that question when it's a double end. So if Katie and I were actually selling our house, then, and, it's the same brokerage, the agent or the buyer, the seller, excuse me, would probably look and go, well, I know Katie's in your company. Do you think that your broker would do some reduction of compensation? And what I say is like, what, they usually don't, but I was certainly happy to check with you. Then usually that's the end of the conversation. But if they bring it up again, you can say, I spoke to Jim or whoever your manager is, and they said no. All right. We will still need to interview more agents. Isn't that a fun one? We still need, if they're telling you they need to interview more agents, then you obviously didn't, wow them or, give them what they kind of needed. I'm always a big fan of walking out of that place with the house with an actual signed listing agreement in place. Sometimes it doesn't happen. I'd probably say 50% it doesn't actually happen because they're not ready yet. I mean, the people yesterday I went, I knew that they were just wanting to kind of pick your brain about kind of what's going on in the market and things of that nature. So, but it's always good to be prepared to have a piece of paper, because if all of a sudden you're there and they say, you know what, let's just do it. And if you don't have that paperwork right then and there, then it's like, all right, I'll DocuSign it to you. And then, 10 minutes later, an hour later, you get to the office and then they say, we kind of changed our minds. I kind of would rather, have it signed, but at the same time, they could just say they changed their mind even after you signed it anyway. But I would just make comments, and like we said before, that I understand that it's important to meet some other individual, people. Some people might say, I know this is a lot of information that I shared with you today, and is there something that I missed that would make you want to would allow you to sell or make a decision today to choose me as your agent of choice? So that's another verbiage that you could say. And then you're really going to find out why they haven't picked you, or why maybe there's a reason why. So, even after the promise we were last, this is not the real objection. They are saying to you, we don't see why we should pay you money to sell our home. That's why, you should leave. I literally had somebody, it was really embarrassing. It was hilariously embarrassing, but for the wife, not really me. But we were sitting at a table, and literally the only thing you have in this vacant house was a table with dim lights. It was like a card table with dim lights in the middle of the living room with 3 chairs. And that's all they had in the house. And I went to meet them and I shared the price of them. And he just said, okay, thank you. That's it. And stood up and walked out of the room. And he goes, nope, not doing this one. Sorry, see ya. And all he was interested in was the price and where it was. And obviously I did not give him the price he wanted. So he just literally just like, that was it. It was the fastest rejection of stood up and just walked out of the room. Which was awesome. I don't remember how I handled that, but I just went, oh, that's great. The wife was super embarrassed. So that was kind of fun. All right. Objection 3, we want to try selling it ourselves. Have you guys had that recently? Probably haven't had that a lot. But if you were, objection, if you went to a for sale by owner, which I did see one over in Colfax the other day, first time I've seen a for sale by owner sign in a long time. And if they want to sell it themselves, you guys can take a total picture here of what that is. I did have a buyer, and maybe this is probably going to be reverting more to a buyer now, maybe versus a seller. But I had a buyer that we were in contract. Sorry, Jess, that was on Far. And they canceled because of fire insurance. And then I got this weird text that said, we want to go now at this time without a realtor. But thank you very much. We'll give you a 5-star review on Yelp. Appreciate your time. And I went, wait. So I sent her a text and said, can we have a conversation about going on your own without a realtor and what that means? And then she basically came back and said, oh, I'm so sorry. Maybe I chose the wrong verbiage in the words. It's been a long day. But I don't know if she really did. But at the same time, if you get a buyer who says, you know what, I think I'm going to do it on my own, you're going to have to really sit down with them and say, do you really want that? And my feeling that I share with this is I say this. If you go to another home, just let you know, let me just give you a scenario what will most likely happen. You go into a house and Jessica's got the house listed for sale, and she actually is representing the seller and the seller only. And if you want to put an offer on that property by yourself, two things are going to happen. One is Jessica's going to say, you know what? Why don't I represent you as well? I'll do a reduction in compensation, and I'll actually just charge, maybe I'll get 2% more from the seller side, but I'll do a dual representation. That is probably most likely going to happen. Or number two, you're going to basically say that Jessica's going to say, well, provide me whatever paperwork you can because I can't give you any paperwork. And so I'm representing the seller only. So give me a piece of paper that has an offer on it, and then we'll present that to the seller. Now you're going in there super unprotected. You don't have the right California forms that you need that are been completely underwritten by attorneys that actually protect you as the buyer. So I kind of share that with them. And those are the two options. So if you went in option number one, and now Jessica's representing you, she really is representing the seller primarily. So now you just paid compensation anyway that you felt that you were going to save compensation because of going by yourself. And now you don't have anybody helping and guiding you through that scenario. So that's kind of how I share with a buyer that wants to go do it on themselves, which happens every once in a while. We have a good friend in the business. We kind of shared that one a little bit. Great, that's fine. How good are they when they come down to negotiation with you? We always can come down later. This is probably one that we actually get. I'm dealing this with a sweet seller named my mom that she basically wants to list at the same price. And I said, Mom, we had it on the market for 6 months before, and we need to come down. Well, I can always come down later. But again, I always tell them, I said, look, I'd rather have us instead of us chasing the market down, I want the market to be chasing us. And so you can talk to them about that. We get the data all the time from our managers that we have 60% of the houses are sitting on the market longer than in Nevada County. 60% are sitting on the market longer than 30 days. And it's like 50 something longer than 60 days. And so you give them those statistics and say, do you want to be them? And when I'm actually sharing and showing my comparables, which I have one going out today, that I actually show them, I point right to it and say, this is where they started, by the way. They started at $700,000 and now they're $599. Oh, look at this one. This one's been on the market 150 days. And by the way, look, they started $75,000 and now they're right here. Do you want to be one of these sellers that's going to be sitting there at 100 and something days on the market and reducing? Because if you were going to want to buy this house, what do you think you would offer if you saw that many days on market? And Carly says, yeah, I'd give them less. I said, that's what a buyer is going to do the same thing to your house. So we need to make sure that we price it accordingly to where it needs to be. I loved it this week on another consultation. She said, we will listen to you on what value that you feel that our house is going to be. Yes, thank you. I really appreciate that because, like, I don't know, we're listening to you. If you're going to go get like surgery and stuff, do you think you're going to say, this is how I want the surgery to be done, please? I only want a small little insertion on the right side of my and it's like, no, they're professionals. You let them do their job. And so basically you kind of have to remind them a little bit about that before. I'm not going to be really rude and say, hey, Jess, have you ever sold a house before? It's like, well, no, I never really have. So then just be quiet. Let me handle it. That would be kind of rude, but there's probably some other states. I was going to say the state back way over there on the upper end that would be that frank on being kind of bold, but I probably wouldn't do that. So I would just let them know, this is here's your pros and cons, because you're going to get people. I think we've shared this before. You're going to get people who are going to say, do you need the money? Because I have a buyer right now or the seller that needs a certain amount of money. Or do you want that has to get this money to make the move? Or are you a seller who is going to price it where the market and where buyers want to purchase your home at? Because if you're that, I need this amount of money. If it doesn't align, flat out tell them that. Say, look, it doesn't really align in today's market value, but I'm willing to give it a shot. But at the same time, if we're sitting here 2, 3, 4 weeks and there's no showings, don't get mad at me. I want to end this relationship as friends. I've said that before. I don't want you guys to be all mad and then all of a sudden 6 months later you fire me and we have a canceled listing and then you don't want to talk to me again because I didn't do a really good job on selling your property because it never sold. That's That's what happens on overpriced listings. But I don't want that to happen in our relationship, Katie. Or do you understand? Oh yeah, totally fine. Okay, it's good. As long as you're good. I'm gonna go a little higher on your valuation, but know in about 30 days we may need to do some adjustment or just maybe cancel the listing completely if you just have to have that money and we just can't get it and the market doesn't bear that. Are you good with that, Katie? And she goes, sure, let's do that. Okay. I've canceled lots of listings on that because I don't want to waste my time either. All right. So objection number 5. Jeff, we had specific number we wanted to get for a house. We kind of shared that one right there. We're not really ready to pull the trigger yet. We need some time to think about it. What I really feel, and I can't remember the exact quote about this, but it was something similar to where that for your listings, you kind of you're cultivating them. You're cultivating them just like a buyer. The lady I'm going to tomorrow, Saturday, it's been probably 2.5 years that I've been talking to her, communicating with her, giving her emails, blasts, everything. And we are meeting tomorrow to sign papers. And it could even be 3 years. So 2.5 to 3 years ago, that's a long time. But if you don't keep in front of them, sometimes we get lucky and we don't communicate with them and they reach out to you because you had a good experience. And sometimes we don't. And then all of a sudden you're looking at a house and go, oh, isn't that my listing? And I go, oh, that's not really fun. So that happens. So just being in front of them is super, super critical and important. Okay. All right. I think that was everything actually. And yeah, that was it. That was it. That was it. That was it. All right. Yeah, make sure you put, yeah, that's it. All right. So I'm going to stop the recording here. And you can ask any questions.